Now we take a small detour from the world of tech and move towards a subject which rhymes the foundation aspects of democratic processes, ensuring that all eligible persons are enabled to cast their vote. To speak on this very important topic, I invite Dr. D. Dhanuraj. Dr. Dhanuraj is a public policy researcher, election analyst, and chairman of the Center of Public Policy Research. His work in election studies focuses on electoral behavior, voter trends, constituency level analysis, public opinion research, and democratic governance. He has led and contributed to election studies across India, campaigning field research, data analysis, and policy insight to examine voting patterns, political narratives, and governance outcomes. A regular commentator in national regional media, he contributes to public discourse on elections, electoral reforms, and public policy. His broad research interests including governance, decentralization, public finance, and institutional development. Welcome, sir.
Good afternoon, and thank you so much for inviting me to share my thoughts on use of technology in elections. And since I am not a tech person, I am not using tech PPT here to share my thoughts. It's a free-flowing conversation. Thank you so much to the Chief Electoral Officer's office and the organizers of the event for conducting such a very important discussion on use of technology in electoral processes. What I remember now, two things. As I was introduced here, I do election studies for last many years, and since 2014, I covered all the general elections and all Indian state elections. And as part of my field and interactions with various stakeholders of elections and electoral processes, I remember in 2021, when I was in Calicut, one of the leading Malayalam dailies, the editor of the Malayalam daily asked me as part of my conversation, just before the assembly elections in Kerala, he asked me, why don't we run a campaign on online voting? My media, my newspaper is ready to run a campaign, not only in Kerala, at the national level. That was the first time actually I thought about it. He said, if you are ready to curate the content and able to write few pieces about it, we are happy to run it and make it as a national campaign. And the reason, very interesting, I think all of us here, when you go to a restaurant or I was coming here taking auto from Tampanu station, and I don't have my cash. I don't have my, I'm actually traveling without much money stored in my wallet. So I was telling my auto driver, I will pay digitally. That's my condition, right? So the idea is that transactions, we do a lot of transactions, right? Every day. And if you know the numbers today, we do around 750 million transactions per day, UPI transactions. That means around 75 crore transactions. And the value of this transaction is around 1 trillion rupees, 1 lakh crore, every day. And it's increasing. And somebody asked me this question. I wrote a piece later on, even though I didn't commit, we can run a campaign. There was a very, exciting offer from a media company. But later I wrote a couple of pieces, national dailies, as part of my regular column write for some national newspapers. But the interest that we should evoke, and at least at the academic level, how technology can be used, whether there is any possibility to use technology. Sit at home, cast your vote. While I was doing research for those pieces, I came across so many interesting examples around the world, and also The challenges, other than the challenges, I'm not a tech person, so I don't want to get into tech part of that. We have enough and sufficient wisdom in this room. But other challenges, from a policy point of view, from a voters point of view, from an electorate point of view, from a political party point of view. Even after 20 years, I believe we still debate I don't know how many people trust EVM. I've been asked this question many times. I did one. I remember a few years back, Malayalam Manorama asked me to run a discussion on Manorama channel. And I did extensive research how AVM can be trusted. Right? And I have a very simple question also. Correct me if I'm wrong, electoral officers, those who deal it daily are here. EVMs are always transferred from one state to other state. Right? The EVM that is used in Maharashtra, that time I remember they used that EVM in Kerala, and it was tampered, probably the result could have been same. Right? Logical, rational reasoning, that's not the answer to that, but there are steps Election Commission takes up. And also there are cases I know, Supreme Court and all, Balakrishnan sir, I'm sure deal with that. I'm not getting to that aspect, also legal aspects of that. This is also state. I think the first time EVM was used in North Paravur constituency. And that was contested, and then the petition was upheld because there was no statute for that, to use that. I think in Europe, the reason why machines are not used on a plain speaking language, I would understand that it is not being statuted. I mean, this is not legalized. It's not because they don't trust machines. So coming to this point, when we do 75 crore transaction every day, more than the vote, I am sure you are transacting a precious, hard-earned money, trusting a third-party vendor, even though there is a gateway and payment gateway. As a policy researcher, we sometimes challenge that gateway principle of one agency doing that. But I'm sure you all use private front end to transact money. And the failure rate is 4 to 5% if I'm not wrong, right? That is 30 million, right? Out of 75 crore, every day you have failure rate of 3 crore. It's not a small number. What I am coming to is, if you can do 75 crore, what is the total voters list? I think last time, 2024 Lok Sabha elections, we had around 91 crore people voting. So it's almost towards that number, right? Approaching that number, we do 75 crore transactions every day, UPI transactions, and we have 90 crore people or more than that in the coming elections, and it is being done. And that transaction is being done at your convenience, right? Sitting at home, you order many things. Sitting at home, you order food. You sitting at home, you order clothes. You sitting at home, you order books. Whatever, everything. See, our latest research in public policy is that in India, we are getting, earlier we used to say Uberization. I think now we are getting to Swiggies and Zomatos. I don't know the right term, we are trying to coin that word, meaning door-to-door entry, right? Everything you want to deliver at home. That's slightly different from Uber. Uber doesn't have to come at doorstep, you can be anywhere. I think that's an increasing, or that's a prevalent understanding or anticipation or expectation from the general public now. Everything should be delivered at the doorstep. If that is the case, why not voting also, right? And I know Election Commission has taken up the step, you have the electronic, the postal ballot been introduced. I'm not so sure is any complaints out of that, but largely it has been fairly accepted, I believe. So I'm not only talking about voting, it's also so many processes leading to the voting. There are also use of technology is possible. So what are those areas? And then I'll conclude by saying, what is a policy approach to it in electoral processes. So, voting, before we discuss any of this, I think there should be a statute. I think it can't be arbitrary, it can't be, we should not leave a space where this can be challenged and contested because there's no legal statute. So, every process that we do, if required, I think most of the times the statute is required when voting is happening, not before and after that. So that is part of the voting, the live voting part. What are the other steps, what are the other avenues where we can think of more and more technology use? So one would be, if I do it step by step, and many of the steps are taken, but we can think about how to improve it. This is also a time we talk a lot about delimitation, right? The whole conversations around delimitation exercise in the country. And I don't know anybody is dealing with GIS mapping and plotting the boundary and give more informed insights when you draw the boundary of a constituency using GIS and all. There's an opportunity lying there, right? I hope this will be taken up at a larger way in the whatever ways we are going to do delimitation. That's a different debate, political debate, and also the administrative debate. But I think delimitation is offering at this stage use of technology. That will also be reversible because it can be publicly contested. I think in 2009, 8-9 time when delimitation happened in Kerala or many parts of the country, I'm not so sure whether public got the opportunity to contest it openly, even though there's a provision for that. Because we don't access the data, we don't have the availability of the data in the public domain. Mostly the political parties contest it. But I think there's a time now we do the end-to-end, like I said, door-to-door, we should be able to contest it. So that's one platform where I see use of technology can be very useful. And when you contest it, it is also it can be used to reverse the process, meaning we can rewrite the boundaries if there is a proper, genuine reason to rewrite that. Second is role management. That is in the water enrollment. I know there are many, I think the platforms like Euronet, EasyINet, there are many digital roles being initiated by Election Commission these days. I think this could be improved and improved. And what I understand, my understanding, because I'm somebody who enrolled long back, but I hear from the students, university students and college students, like they can also do it sitting at home. And how can we strengthen that process so that the contestation again could be limited or reduced over a period of time. Easy to enroll. Then role duplication, that is again a process that is being contested, challenged many times, whether technology can be used in a better way. And also there's a technical question, I think Aadhaar linking, voter ID and all is a contested debate, I understand that, but still, can we use technology for that? Then the fourth one would be the voter ID at booth, when you go to vote. Is there any way, whether your biometrics can be used or whether is any other technology can be used so that a filtration or identification, not filtration, identification. Filtration is the challenge there. Sorry for using that term. Not to filter people, but to identify the right voter. That's other venue for voter ID at the booth. Then nomination disclosure. I think our country is so, I always wonder, I walked with some of these candidates when they go and file this nomination, It's some top political leaders will walk for 2 kilometers the whole, city and, probably whole state will go for a jam and nothing happens that time. And whether we can sit at home and do that, I don't know. Why don't we do that? Because I was part of this project long time back. I mean, this is in 2007-8 time. There was a project called, when election, when the judgment came, you have to disclose the affidavit disclosure, the asset disclosure. That time it was not easy. So what we used to do that, I was actually doing for Kerala State in my younger days. We go and collect it from the office, and then we scan it, and then we upload it for the public disclosure matter. Now I think things have changed a lot. Now we can do that. I think that these things, nomination, I was like talking about the disclosure part, but it could also be a nomination part. Why should, if I want to file a nomination in Varanasi, I should be able to do it, sit at home in Kochi. That's a way we should look at it. Then campaign enforcement. I know the Commission has already initiated process like C-Vigil, MCMC and all. Campaign enforcement, especially the social media part. I wrote a paper last year, for a foreign journal that's in the public domain now. We actually studied 2024 elections and how AI and other tools influence in the elections. Okay. It's very difficult to assess it. So what we did, our methodology was, there are people actually working this. They keep observing it. We also use C-Vigil for some time, part of the system. We talk to social media companies, how they do that. And we looked at the numbers, live numbers, actually how many clicks for some of the campaigns. But I think technology could be used for a better assessment and understanding and make elections neutral, right? It's not hijacked by fake campaigns and fake news and fake ideas, right? So that's another area I think we should work on. Then polling, of course, we are talking about EVMs and VVPAT. There's always discussion about VVPAT, how spread that VVPAT should be. That's other one. And polling, that's probably the focus here, more or less, how we use it for polling. My issue with that is not with the technology. Okay, respect technology, we are all using and consuming technology. Election is a process where you win the trust of voters, right? It should be beyond any suspicion, it should be beyond any mistrust, it should be beyond any, alleged malpractices, right? The moment the voters lose that trust, the problem is democracy in crisis. It's not about elections. Democracy is in crisis. When I started my career as an election analyst, one of the papers I read that time was from 1990s to 2005, I remember, if I'm not wrong. This is a paper co-authored by Shamika Ravi in her peak research career. She and her authors identified that when the ballot paper were in use. They studied some North Indian states. And then they studied how that system changed with the introduction of EVMs. And then the finding was that and their argument was, when paper ballots were used, the same government ruled the state for decades, right? But that can be contested now. There are states, even after EVM, there are government states where EVM, even after EVMs, they are ruling for decades. They rule for decades. But the idea of that paper was that EVM brought more transparency and removed all the malpractices to a great extent. They had evidence, photographs, newspaper reports in their paper. how booth capturing were happening, how they use the machinery, police machinery or state machinery to capture the booths and all. So that was the case. So I think whenever we discuss technology, make sure that people trust that. We trust UPI more than probably EVMs and elections. That's why we don't mind transact our hard-earned money to the channels we don't know who is the other person receiving that money, but we trust that channel. That is the trust that we need to do. I just do it in 2-3 minutes. Then counting. What is the use of technology? How do we use? I know encore tabulation is done these days, and then of course postal. I already discussed. I think Commission has already started that process. Remote voting is another contested idea in India. Remote voting, especially for NRIs, they also told that you have to be in Indian missions and Indian consuls to vote it. I don't know, exactly, but this is what I'm told by many people, not exercised. And I also remember, I think Election Commission 2022, I believe there was an attempt by Election Commission for a RVM. There is a computer mega system that was set up, and it can connect to some 64 to 72 constituencies. Even though Election Commission announced it, the day that was supposed to be demonstrated, political parties opposed it, then Election Commission, then afterwards I didn't hear about that. I don't know what is exactly the status of that project. So I stop here, but my takeaway or my learning in this is a very interesting topic. We can go for hours. Elections should be beyond suspicion. It should be, nobody should suspect how elections are being conducted, what technology, whether Election Commission is a provider or regulator. That's a major question that we need to ask, a policy point of view. How auditable, how publicly investigated, examined, assessed by every voter in the country. It's not about few people sitting in this room can assess and say like, this is a great idea. What Indian democracy, when we say largest democracy in the world, I think it thrives on with the very electoral process. I don't think it's all about the parliamentary system that we follow. More than that, above everything, I think it's election and electoral processes that makes our system robust and convincing to everyone. That's why we have a rule of law in this country to a great extent. We believe that the people who elected by us are actually passing the laws for us, so we should abide by that law. And if there's a crisis in terms of the trust, then it will collapse. So I stop here. I have so much to discuss, but I'll stop here. Yeah. Any questions, anything, any comments?
ഹലോ സാർ, അപ്പോൾ നമ്മൾ അപ്രോപ്രിയേറ്റ് ടെക്നോളജി ഫോർ ദ സ്റ്റേജസ് ഓഫ് എലക്ഷൻ. അപ്പോൾ എനിക്ക് തോന്നുന്നു നമ്മുടെ ഒരു എലക്ഷനെ കുറിച്ചുള്ള ഇല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഇലക്ട്രൽ കാര്യങ്ങളുമായിട്ട് ബന്ധപ്പെട്ടിട്ടുള്ളൊരു അവബോധം ജനങ്ങളിലില്ലാത്തതൊരു വലിയ പ്രോബ്ലമാണ്, ഇലക്ഷനെ കുറിച്ചുള്ള പ്രോബ്ലമാണ് എന്ന് എനിക്ക് തോന്നുന്നു. അതുപോലെ തന്നെ നമ്മൾ ഡിജിറ്റൽ കാര്യങ്ങൾ ഇലക്ഷനിൽ ഇംപ്ലിമെൻ്റ് ചെയ്യുമ്പോൾ വലിയൊരു പ്രോബ്ലം ഉണ്ടെന്ന് പറയുന്നതും എന്താണ്, നമ്മുടെ ടെക്നോളജിക്കൽ നോളജിലുള്ള ഗ്യാപ്പ് എന്ന് നമ്മൾ പറയുന്നുണ്ട്. അപ്പോൾ പക്ഷേ ഞാൻ സാറ് പറഞ്ഞായിരുന്നു നമ്മളൊരു ഇലക്ഷൻ ക്യാമ്പയിൻ ഇലക്ഷൻ അവയർനെസ്സിന് വേണ്ടി റൺ ചെയ്യുന്നതിനെ കുറിച്ചൊക്കെ സംസാരിച്ചിരുന്നു. അപ്പോൾ നമ്മുടെ കേരളത്തിലിപ്പോൾ ഡിജിറ്റൽ ലിറ്ററസി 100% ആക്കുന്നതിന് വേണ്ടിയുള്ള ഒരു ഡ്രൈവ്, ഒരു ക്യാമ്പയിൻ നടന്നിരുന്നു. അപ്പോൾ അതിൻ്റെ ഭാഗമായിട്ട് അതിലുണ്ടായിരുന്ന ചോദ്യങ്ങൾ ഇതൊക്കെയാണ്. നിങ്ങൾക്ക് ആമസോൺ വഴി സാധനം ഓർഡർ ചെയ്യാൻ അറിയാമോ? ഓൺലൈൻ വഴി സാധനം വാങ്ങാൻ അറിയാമോ? ഫേസ്ബുക്ക് യൂസ് ചെയ്യാൻ അറിയാമോ? വാട്സപ്പ് യൂസ് ചെയ്യാൻ അറിയാമോ എന്നൊക്കെയായിരുന്നു. പക്ഷേ എന്തുകൊണ്ട് നമ്മൾ ഈ ECI നെറ്റ് യൂസ് ചെയ്യാൻ അറിയാമോ എന്ന് ചോദിക്കുന്നില്ല? സോ നമുക്ക് ഏറ്റവും എളുപ്പത്തിൽ നമ്മുടെ ഇലക്ഷനുമായിട്ട് ബന്ധപ്പെട്ടിട്ടുള്ള കാര്യങ്ങൾ ജനങ്ങളിലേക്ക് എത്തിക്കാൻ പറ്റുക, അതായത് നമ്മൾ 100% ഒരു കാര്യം ചെയ്യാൻ വേണ്ടി നോക്കുമ്പോൾ, അതായത് എല്ലാ ജനങ്ങളിലേക്ക് എത്തിക്കാൻ വേണ്ടി ഒരു ക്യാമ്പയിൻ നടത്തുമ്പോഴത്തേക്കും അതിനകത്ത് ഇലക്ഷനുമായിട്ടുള്ള കാര്യങ്ങൾ ബന്ധപ്പെടുത്തിയാൽ ഉൾപ്പെടുത്തിയാൽ നമുക്ക് ഇലക്ഷൻ്റെ ഒരു അവബോധം ഇല്ലെങ്കിൽ ആ ഒരു നോളേജ് ജനങ്ങളിലേക്ക് ഏറ്റവും പെട്ടെന്ന് എത്തിക്കാൻ വേണ്ടി സാധിക്കില്ലേ?
ഓക്കെ, ക്വിക്ക് ആൻസർ. എനിക്ക് തോന്നുന്നു നമ്മൾ ഇലക്ഷൻ കമ്മീഷൻ കഴിഞ്ഞ കുറേ വർഷങ്ങളായിട്ട്, കഴിഞ്ഞ കുറേ ദശാബ്ദങ്ങളായിട്ട് ഇലക്ഷനെ പറ്റി ഒരുപാട് പ്രചരണങ്ങൾ, അതിൻ്റെ ഒരു മാനിഫെസ്റ്റേഷനാണ് നമ്മുടെ വോട്ടിംഗ് പെർസെൻറ്റേജും കൂടി വരുന്നത്. അപ്പോൾ അത് ദാറ്റ്സ് എനിവേ ഇറ്റ്സ് ഹാപ്പനിങ്. ഐ എം നോട്ട് സെയിങ് election commission has not taken steps. We are doing it. I think they are working with the universities, colleges, many other institutions. It's getting better and better, I believe. Second, ഇതിൻ്റെ ഓൺലൈൻ്റെ ഒരു പ്രശ്നം എന്താണെന്ന് വെച്ചാൽ, that's what I wrote actually. The idea was that you get some 30 seconds or 2 minutes to cast your vote. So let's say you have a laptop, that window will open within 2 minutes. Like when you are in booth, that 2 minutes you get the opportunity to vote. Okay, then that window closes. Then you can't reopen and do it, or you can't edit it, anything that you said about blockchain and all, right? That's also a possibility. But the problem was, how do you ensure that when I sit at home or wherever I'm sitting, I'm not doing that voting not under any intimidation? Somebody is pointing his gun at my neck and vote it, because that will not come in that let's say, you can even say that we can have a live video, live camera and all, but even then, how do you make sure that somebody sitting here, you're voting, I'm asking, vote for that person? That's a tricky part, that I don't know how technology can solve it. Because we say that election should be free and fair, right? When you say free and fair, the challenge is when you sit in your, even at home, because in North India we found, even now, many people influence your voting. Even we'll go to the booth, many people will be intimidating you, go for that. Go vote for this particular party, go for this particular candidate. So how do you know that? But that's still happening in the public space. Still I can figure out. But when you sit at home and do it, how do you ensure that nobody is pointing gun at you? How do we make sure that the free and transparent, fair election process? That's a challenge. That still I'm not able to find the answer for that. How do you ensure that? We looked at American system. There also it happens. Right. Intimidation happens everywhere, not only in India, across the world. Right. Don't think that we are the poor country. People do all the nonsense. No, everywhere it happens, and everywhere they have the problem. Okay, so I stop now. Thanks. I don't have any specific take on the note that is prepared and circulated, but I started with UPA in the morning, so I probably end up with UPA again. We discussed a lot about the legitimacy last few sessions, the legitimacy of the whole process, and who gives the legitimacy and how you get legitimized, your process is legitimized. Someone like me observing elections for last so many years, one thing is clear. Election as such, as it is, very decentralized system in India. Election, if you go to Nirvajan Bhavan in Delhi, you have 3 commissioners, and if I'm not wrong, probably another 40, 50, and then there's a secretariat for that. And that is a system that actually conducts elections, and that particular body is not for a particular period of time, it's a continuous process. But the very exciting part of this process is, it's not those who sit in Delhi or, I know electoral officer here, actually people who are on the ground are different. I got into debates many times with usually media approaches, and all the academic discussions also. One thing I learned, the legitimacy comes when your own people, part of the process, meaning people who work with the government, people who work with the schools, colleges, as presiding officers, those who man the polling booth on that day, that gives the legitimacy. And if we had 91 crore voters, we are around 1 million, let's say, EVMs, and you have these many people, I don't know exactly, but I think that is also around 1 million people, undertaking the exercise, not only on the day, at different phases, different times. I think that gives the legitimacy. The problem with this technology would be that decentralization, I fear, sometimes become very centralized. That will be questioned. Right. Because the questionable part is, technology as I say, why UPA is legitimized? I mean, in a different sense. You have competing apps in the market. Right. So will you be able to give competing apps here? I don't think so. Or maybe, we should think about it. So decentralized, centralized system is the beauty of the election process in India. It's very decentralized. I come from a family, my parents, my uncles, aunts are all teachers, professors. All of them were, from my childhood days, I remember, during the election time, they are there. Right. So we feel like a connect, a relation. Oh, they are also part of the system. Right. It's not like somebody's driving the process from Delhi. Right. The technology, as we always, debated, whenever we discuss technology at any point, whether we give that touch feel, technology will be able to do that, then it could be delegitimized. The other one is, we also have a system in India, for example, a passport. Passport, all processes, that's an example everybody quotes, right? The TCS does that. And go there within few minutes, I took passport 21 years back, spent there 2 days in Kochi's passport office, passport seva kendra. Today when I renewed it, few months back, I think, I took almost like half an hour job. They give a window, like what we discussed in the morning. We will give a window, go there, do the thing, rest is done. But is it possible to replicate such kind of an exercise in election is the challenge we are going to face, right? Because passport and UPA applications are different from elections. I strongly believe these are different things. Because in these two cases, you get results immediately. Yes or no, Or, I also, when I sometimes do the transaction, UPI transaction, you fail. It shows that fail. I'm okay. In the beginning, I have certain, I was little, I was not so sure what will happen to my money. If it is 50 rupees, fine, okay. Even if it goes, fine. But if it's 3,000 rupees, what will happen? But now system has developed that you don't have to worry, it will reverse to your account, right? But election, there's a problem. I think every election that when I started my career, every election I discussed, there is a time, you cast your vote on this day. For example, Kerala, it was 45 days, right? Around 40 days. So everybody is worried, like what is happening during that time? It's not a quick result, right? I'm worried about whether EVMs. Then then you see all the videos. Oh, what is happening? The storage. I said, is right or wrong is not the question. As a voter, sometimes I'm little challenged. I voted, fine. Till that process, I don't know what is happening next 40 days. Somebody is going to manipulate that. So whether the technology that we are going to propose here is going to solve that issue, by evening, I'm going to get results. even if it is so, I think that time duration, 5 o'clock, the polling is over, 5:30, polling is over, people standing in the queue, next day you're doing it. I think there is a time we used to do that, right, in the past. And there's also, when we evolved and matured enough, I think we are taking more time to count the votes now. That's also a debatable point. So I think that is one challenge every citizen, every voter has to be convinced. What is happening that time? Okay. Everything can be rest assured till the time of polling, that is fine. But post polling, what is going to happen? And I think this voting process is completely different from a financial transactions. It is complete. This is something like, I give it probably a parallel example. Now Supreme Court only said, right? Don't use AI to write your judgments. I think we are almost in the same plane here. I think that's a comparable example. Okay. And again, we can argue, okay, I think I attended one of these workshops, Supreme Chief Justice of India was there a couple of years back in Kumaragam. And there actually, there is a session on how can we use AI in our court judgments and all. But as an enabler tool, it was not suggested, they were not suggesting that AI should write the judgment. But they were saying probably research could be a little more easier. You can actually find the trail of the case in a better way. It could also, some cases, not all the cases, some cases, maybe we can use AI better than human intellect, like challan and all, and there's no criminal proceeding as such. So this is a comparable note. And finally, since we discussed Switzerland thing and all, I think the whole point is, I think we should look at decentralized government more than the centralized polling issues. If I can do a system like this in Trivandrum Municipal Corporation, I'd be more than happy. Probably that will give more legitimacy than your votes to Lok Sabha. I think that will be a very debatable point. We have how many 100 watts into Trivandrum Municipal Corporation. Try doing this, build the legitimacy, and we also, as a policy person, I used to work on something called Area Sabha in the past, because in India it's very funny. I think Jharkhand Chief Minister, when he won, this was 2016-17 time, his wards, his majority, the winning majority was less than the majority of the mayor. Less than the majority of the mayor of Ranchi Municipal Corporation. This become a contentious issue. Who has got more legitimacy? Because his constituency was smaller than, because there is a direct election to Ranchi mayor. Unlike the many other parts of unlike Trivandrum Municipal Corporation, there's a direct election. So Ranchi Municipal Corporation's mayor won by some 40,000 votes, and Chief Minister of Ranbir Das, I'm referring to the Chief Minister of Jharkhand, Ranbir Das, he had only 8,000 votes majority. So so probably we should try out at the local level, because of the decentralized involvement of various institutions and individuals in today's electoral process. And that decentralization could be legitimized at the local level than at a level that you vote for MP and Lok Sabha seat. That's my take on this issue. Thanks.